Welcome to this Be Better podcast, where strategy, continuous improvement, innovation, leadership, and organizational development are the pillars that drive success. In every episode, seasoned professionals share their insights, proven methodologies, and powerful tools to help you grow both personally and professionally. At Be Better, we are dedicated to your continuous improvement journey. Know better, do better, and be better. So listen, learn, apply, and unleash your potential.
All right. I'm super excited. I saw you're drinking something, right?
I'm having a cup of tea. It's gone a bit cold.
Great. I have my coffee, but I'm excited because we have Johnny Francis, one of my best friends. I was just dying to have this podcast with you, so thank you for making the time.
It's an absolute pleasure.
So why don't you introduce yourself, Johnny, first, and then we're going to go straight and dive into some important topics we need to talk about.
Okay. Well, my name's Johnny Francis. I've known Carlos for nearly, 15 years?
Yeah.
I'm a UK director of a large international INGO. I'm responsible for business transformation, which has strategy, performance, but also it has a change program as part of that. And therefore, it involves technology projects, culture change projects, all sorts of different things. Basically, anything that no one else wants to do is my job. And trying to make a difference in the organization. I have a personal vision or kind of mission statement, which is my aim is to try to release and empower people to bring their very best so that they can be the best person that they've been created to be. And I do that with people and with organizations. So I get to do that every day in the work that I do. So in lots of ways, I love my job.
Oh my goodness. Great. That's exciting. And as I was telling you, in the consulting that I do and Be Better, I think about these three pillars, right, which are strategy, leadership and organizational development, and continuous improvement and innovation. And something I've learned is that there's no many people with that experience on each one of those three areas. And that's why I have to talk to Johnny, because he's one who has that holistic perspective. And so I want to keep learning about you, Johnny, because you're smart, you're kind, you're successful. And so why don't we start with strategy and just give us your perspective about strategy and maybe some of the lessons you have learned along the way.
Well, first off, to say that I have experience, I have one person's experience of one part of the world in a small sector. I cannot speak for everybody.
I forgot to say, and humble.
Oh, I'm essentially a very nosy generalist, and that is ideal for somebody who leads strategy. You can never be all over everything. You can never know enough. Huge consulting firms need to involve 1 million people to be able to input to strategy. If you're a nosy generalist, you've got it made, because you get to learn lots of things. You get to be involved in everything. And the best of all, you get to play. My own personal perspective on strategy is that strategy is just about defining the game you want to play and how you plan to win the game. So you get to play all the time. It's a series of placing bets, if you're a betting person, which I'm not. But it is a sense of trying to understand the context you're in, trying to understand the resources that you've got, the things that you're going to bring to the table, and then how you're going to use those to win the game. And it is risky. It's a series of bets. So you can give me lots of strategy books, but essentially that's my take on strategy.
Okay, good. And so it's interesting because, especially working for a nonprofit, I experienced myself when I was helping the organization to do strategy. Even the word winning can bring some emotions, right? And so, how do you, in your experience, have wrestled with that idea of winning in the context of a nonprofit or in general? I think that'll be fun to learn your perspective on that.
I really like to say winning as much as possible to all of our staff in the charity sector.
I'm
Because
the same way.
I like to provoke people to conversation, because I think it's in conversation that we wrestle with these things. And the trick to me is that if you play your part really well, then all boats rise. It means that everybody can also play their parts really well, and everybody's a winner. So just because I work for one charity doing one part really well doesn't exclude another charity doing their part really well. But if we also then collaborate and we can network and share learnings and all of that, it means that everybody can win. So it is about defining that particular game that you want to play, your unique value that you are going to bring to make the world a better place, and seeking and soul searching really hard to make sure that you've got that really crisp and clear, and you work together with others who also share that same vision and mission together. If that is really clear, then you can work alongside a million other people and work together to make the world a better place. So I think it's about being a bit provocative, but also seeking the very best and working together to make the
I
world a better
love
place.
that. I love that. I've been dealing with that for the last couple of years, and I think you have hit on very important aspects. And you keep bringing this idea of bringing the best on, from people. So, what is your perspective on that in the context of strategy? Because we've learned sometimes that strategy could be viewed as a very top-down approach,
Yeah.
but we know that, well, the knowledge of what's going on is usually with the people who are dealing with the customers and pain points and all that. So, what is your take on that aspect of really making sure that you have a strategy that brings those ideas and to form the strategy of the organization?
So I've been involved in probably 3 or 4 enterprise-wide strategy pieces of work. In 2 instances, it was a very top-down approach, partnering with 2 of the big 5 management consulting agencies, and then delivering that to the staff and then engaging them. The other processes I've been involved in, one was very much the opposite, working with people in the organization, helping us see the context that they were working within, the challenges, defining the strategic questions, and working upwards from the bottom up. And then the last and most recent I've been involved in, which has been the one that I've essentially kind of co-created the most, if you like, is a hybrid of the two, where we've worked with an experienced generalist management consultancy to bring thought leadership, bring analytic processing power and new tools and frameworks to help us think differently, but then matching it with workshopping approaches that brought subject matter experts from across the organization to feed into that. That's the one I like the most. It feels great to do a fully bottom-up. It feels wonderful because you know the people that you're working alongside. You get to experience all of their good stuff. But it's often very long. It's often very long and can take up to a kind of year or two to kind of get into implementation. The bonus is that when you hit implementation, it's people are on board. But with every strategy process, you invariably end up rejigging something, and somebody isn't that happy. You always end up having to hold the line somewhere and make somebody unhappy. So whatever the approach, you're always going to get some bump in the road when it comes to implementation. The top down, the trick is then in being able to transition that. And my experience is it never quite manages it. It never quite cuts through and changes people's behavior or ways of working to then adopt the new strategy. The hybrid approach, I think, is the right one in today's fast-paced world. You do need external thought-provoking power. You do need analytics and processing that can move quickly, and skills that are different and bring an accelerated quality to how you think. But the bringing subject matter experts from across the organization, talking about that widely, allowing lots of people to input to that, shapes it, but doesn't control it and doesn't slow it down. And you get the good stuff of both the great thinking and insight and tools and frameworks alongside better bottom-up thinking and then implementation as well. And the hope is that that'll be quicker implementation as well.
I love that. I think we need to dedicate a few more episodes to unpack each one of these topics that we're going to be covering today, because you have a lot of insight and knowledge that we need to extract from that mind, Johnny. And so you and I also have talked a lot about this in terms of culture, right? And when we think about culture, we have to talk about leadership and organizational development, which is another area that you have done extensively. And so I'd love to get your perspective on the idea of leadership and organizational development.
Okay, well, I will take them slightly the other way around. I will take them as organizational development and then the part that leadership plays in it, I think.
Okay.
Organizational development is the use of people in delivering your strategy. So it starts with strategy and uses the human throughout the whole process of then delivering that. And the model I like to use most is a model by Burke Litwin. It's an old model, but it's potentially a little bit complicated. It takes the McKinsey 7S and kind of splits it out into a million different boxes. But it starts with external context, names the strategy, looks at leadership and management practice, ways of working, right through to team morale and personal motivation. And then it looks at the outcomes that you can generate that then feed and dictate how your strategy is then enabled. I love that model of working through because it allows you to kind of have a tick box. It allows you to say, do I fully understand my context, my strategy, my leadership, my management, but much of the time we don't pay attention to all of those boxes. We pay attention to staff morale because people feel a bit funny. We pay attention to performance, but we don't we don't relate that back to then personal motivations and the impact of that. And so you need all of this web woven together to enable the delivery of that strategy. And that's what organizational development's about. People are at the center of all of those different things because it's people that we expect to deliver the work. Even if we have machines along with us, it's people that do it. And if you don't pay attention to people, your strategy will not be delivered. And so it's looking at the human system alongside all of the functions that your organization delivers to make sure it's healthy enough to deliver that strategy. When we've looked at it, when I've looked at it as part of my work, I start every planning cycle with my Berkeley model, and I make a quick assessment against every single box, and I make sure that throughout the planning process, I'm then developing whether our plans are addressing areas that are glowing red and need attention. If I get to have a plan for every area, then I know I've got a plan that will work, or that it has a good chance of working. If I don't pay attention to that, then I might as well go home. The trick then is to how do you then use that on an ongoing basis to ensure that you can deliver against it, and tack and change your strategy in line with what you're finding in and through the delivery of it. Leadership as one of those boxes. It's only one of those boxes, but it is one of the absolute critical have-tos. It's the thing that you absolutely have to have is an aligned, clear leadership who know what they want to achieve and are modeling the system and the behaviors and the mindsets that you want the organization to live out. Without the articulation of clarity of what you want to achieve, and then the modeling of how that needs to be done, you are dead in the water. So leadership is a litmus test as to whether or not your strategy will be delivered.
Wow, that's huge. I mean, I've been learning a lot about organizational development through a lens of, as you're describing, a more comprehensive model. Is this also what a lot of people know as operating model? Is that what you will consider that model that you describe? And because I've been studying more different operating models, and sounds like what you were describing has that similar definition. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so the Litwin model is just an OD diagnostic tool. So it's just a list, potentially, and can be helpful. But it does point to nearly every aspect of the operating model. You're absolutely right. In the most recent strategy review, we've also then followed that through with a operating model redesign. So we started with our vision, mission, and values. We then named our strategy, and then we talked about how our business model is going to achieve those things, and then the operating model that achieves your business plan. So we looked at structure, process, people. We looked at the technology roadmap. We looked at our governing body structures and how decisions get made. We looked at our culture, our mindsets, our behaviors. And in that, the operating model needs to be set, or needs to be planned. And then you can execute it. One of the biggest unlockers for me was the way in which, when we were working with a consulting firm, they talked about capabilities. So if you're wanting to achieve something, what are the capabilities that you require to enable you to deliver it? And normally when we talk about capabilities, or certainly in my experience, we talk about capabilities as skills. But actually, if you think about it, you need skills, you need the process, you need the governance, you need technology, you need all of those things which form a capability to deliver something.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, when we've been talking about our plans, we've been saying to achieve that strategy, the capabilities that we need are X, Y, Z. The things that we don't have of those are these and this and that and the other. Therefore, those are the things that we need to pay attention to. And it's simplified the way in which we've been able to do our planning. It's simplified our decision-making structures and what we need to decide upon. And it's enabled us to troubleshoot some of the areas where we need immediate fixes. Otherwise, the whole falls apart. So it was a nice unlocker, thinking of capabilities as a means to deliver plans.
Mm-hmm. Great. This sounds like another episode of just talking about operating model and organizational development, which sounds really fun. I'd love to dig deeper into understanding that better. And so one of the things I've been also trying to, in the organization that I'm working with, shift is this mindset of strategy is a one-time event or one-time process. And I've been trying to change the mindset to something that it's more iterative and something that it's more agile. And that leads us to our last pillar that I think it's fun to talk to you about, which is the pillar of continuous improvement and innovation, where you and I met basically many years ago. Yes.
When I had hair, I think.
A little bit. Not too much, but a little, yeah. And we started working with Kaizen, and we did a lot of work with Teleri and Petrina, which we sent greetings in grants, and it was fun. But how does that mindset of continuous improvement and innovation has been helpful in your thinking of this systemic view of the organization?
Well, and this is where whilst I should love the world of Lean Six Sigma, I'm not your great analytics person, as you well know. But the principles are the things that have been that have shaped the way that all of those who've been involved in continuous improvement, as taught by your good self, the elimination of waste, the seeking out of value, putting our customers first, defining what we mean by customers, all of that has been a game changer for the way in which we've been able to think about our internal processes as well as those that serve those audiences that are external. But I think for me, the method of or the framework of Kaizen has enabled us as an organization to come together, to enable conversation, to make sure that we are playing our roles, not our hierarchy or anything like that, where we're very clear on the aims that we want to achieve, where we come together in conversation and seek together to look at what those things are that add value, and then form a plan to improve it. That has been the game. That has been wonderful. It's produced in Teleri, Petrina, others across the organisation. We went on to train over 50 or 60 people, I think, in our organisation in Lean Six Sigma and Kaizen, and involved them in lots of different projects. Is bred a group of people whose first reaction is, we've got a problem, let's define the problem and then bring lots of people together around it. And by lots of people, we mean the right people. We mean the people who know the most about the problem, people who will bring different thinking. And that has been wonderful. And you can see pockets of it across the organization being facilitated by people who care and who want the organization to grow and be better. The thing that, and I know this wasn't the question, so I'm just going to go here. The thing that is both important for strategy execution and for Lean Six Sigma and Kaizen and is being very clear that you can change one thing at a time. We never, and I think it's a sector, charity sector, INGO sector problem. We like our priorities. We like to add an IES on the end rather than just have one priority. But in so doing, we are nailing our coffin lid on bit by bit. We need to work together to define the one thing that needs to change, and then the next one thing that needs to change, then the next one thing, in that way that Agile does, in the way that should be able to respond better to an ever-changing environment. And that, I would say, if you were to add Lean Six Sigma, Kaizen, and then this ruthless prioritization where we are all bought into supporting the one change at a time, that would make a massive difference. That would be very exciting.
I know somebody who is going to be many people. You're going to make many people happy when they hear you speaking about this specific topic of prioritization. I'm thinking about Sarah Krass, which I send greetings. I think she talks a lot about ruthless prioritization. And I just remember this quote from Continuous Improvement that says, continuous improvement is done project by project and in no other way, which is what you're saying is like, okay, identify what is that one priority that you want to improve, and then bring the right people, have those key conversations, of course, follow the methodology and then solve it and then move to the next one. Because as you said, we are dealing with so many moving parts in our organizations and very limited resources, where if you don't do that, you spread too thin and then you don't really create the change that you're aiming for.
In one of our conversations, we've talked about the fact that change happens at the human level. We have to focus on one thing because we have to go as fast as people can go. And I think that if that statistic that says that 70% of change fails because of lack of prioritization and focus and enabling environments and all of that stuff. We have to own the fact as leaders in our sector, we have to drive prioritization. And whilst it might be quite uncomfortable, because we want to involve lots of people, we want to hear lots of voices, we shouldn't shirk the responsibility of owning the need to decide and to drive and lead. And that I think, I'm in that journey myself. I don't like making people feel uncomfortable either, but it is the thing that will change us as an organization, as a sector, and it will be the thing that makes the biggest difference if we can align our efforts around one thing at a time.
Wow. Well, we could keep talking about this, Johnny, but we have to limit the time of the podcast. But I want to close with, I know there's people that will hear this that are probably trying to define their strategy, or they're working on improving their operating model, the improving leadership, or doing continuous improvement. So what what advice would you give those people who are in the middle of that or who are struggling with that? What is that thing that you want to share with them?
Why, thank you for the question, caller. It's not a big one or anything. So this is my own. This is what I do. I have to sit on my own. I have to work hard at concentrating on what is the one 15-word max sentence of either the problem or opportunity statement. And that has been the game changer for me on many crossroads, because there is so much information, there is so many choices you can make, there are so many directions you can go. You have to find your perspective and your point of view. You have to settle it within yourself. You have to wrestle it within yourself so you can, with integrity, communicate that and be able to drive that prioritization that you need either in strategy, in continuous improvement, in what area and aspect of the whole web of interventions you can make on organization development. If you can get it to one word, even better.
I love that because you're bringing it to a very tactical and personal side, which sounds like in any of these circumstances, define what is that problem that you're trying to address. Write it down, and that's going to give you the direction that you need to do the next step.
But it isn't an easy job, and you know that. It's the hardest thing.
Yes,
but if you can do that well and simply and with clarity, you can change the world. You really can.
And you use the word integrity, which is really interesting. So I love that. Well, thank you, Johnny, for your time. It's a pleasure.
You.
This is not going to be the last podcast we're going to record because there's so much we can learn from you. So I'm just thankful that we spend this time together.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.